What is good, everyone? Welcome. Kingdom Economics. For those of you that this is the first time, Kingdom Economics is about wealth built on biblical principles and spiritual alignment with one's identity in Yeshua. And what we are covering today is the review of all the royalties that we spoke of in the last 3 weeks. Before we do that, let's go ahead and get into prayer. Father, we come before you in the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach, as you are great and greatly to be praised. And we praise you for this day, as it is the day you've made, and we'll rejoice and be glad in it. We ensure that your will is being done in our lives, so that way we become one in you, and you become one in us, as well as we restore your creation. That way we also become abundantly prosperous, so that way everything falls together perfectly for you, for us, and for creation. I establish sentinel angels at every dimensional access point, so that way we will not be hindered or checked by any outside forces, and that there will be no astral traffic or trading involved in what we are doing. Pray this on your mighty name, Yeshua HaMashiach, Elef Tov. All right, so what we went over for week 1 was books, music, arts, and games. And so these specifics was on the entertainment side of things. The second week, we went over resources like land, minerals, waters, gems, metals, that kind of thing. Last week, what we did was go over investment style. There's, franchisors, investment deals, and property royalties, because there are definitely other applications that you can utilize in having royalties, but these are usually the main types that people will derive as the source for the royalties. Now, when we look at the books, music, art, games, the entertainment side of things, you want to create a trade secret. We went in depth onto that, but you want to have a trade secret when you start, because it is free to create a trade secret. It doesn't cost you anything except your time. Whereas, let's say you get a patent or do a copyright or a trademark, that kind of thing is going to be more so a cost than anything else. And that's okay. But for those of you that are starting with near zero or zero trade secret, the best place to start. And you always want to keep that in a safe place. You do want to license your work, as well as finding an agent to pass out the license with a contract, sometimes a non-disclosure agreement, to those that are publishers, whether a book or for your music or art, video games, or apps, or whatever. The agent won't usually charge you up front. Any agent that charges up front, I would not recommend doing business with. The standard for agents is charging their fee after they find you your publishers and promoters. That way, it's not on the basis of what hasn't been found, but the work that they've done to position you for receiving royalty income. Now, that's not to say you can't with resources or investments, that style. But you're going to see it a little bit more frequently when it comes to the entertainment side of things and that kind of work. You do want to secure contracts as doing one piece of work. Now, as this is done through multiple publishing channels, doing more than one piece of work is not favorable for your time. You see, wealthy people, they know their time is valuable because it's limited. It's not where you're going to be around for hundreds of years or close to 1,000 years. No one has that capacity. Not yet. Although the capacity for what each and every one of us has is time for our physical body. That is limited to, as far as I'm aware, 130 years. Some people have lasted a little longer than 120. But the point being is that you don't want to do so much work for a type of skill that you're good at and extend it into many areas and come to find out most of it is not going to bring you any kind of royalties. So you want to avoid that. You want to go all in on one type of work. Going all in on one type of work will then produce those multiple streams of income. Not multiple work for multiple streams of income. That's not wise advice. Anyone who's giving you that kind of advice, I recommend and suggest you walk away. And if you've invested any kind of financial aspect with them, I would just say cut your loss because you're wasting your time. Let them do what they're doing so that way you can focus on doing one thing and receiving multiple sources of income, the royalty income from that one thing. That doesn't mean you can't have 2 or 3 key skills. You can definitely have that. But doing one piece of work, you don't want to extend past that. Now, once it's established, you do have all that, the royalty income happening and generating from what you've been looking for that piece of work. That's fine to move on to another piece of work. But don't go from one piece of work to the next. It's going to, again, take away time that you can be putting elsewhere, if not towards the one piece of work. Now, what you want to do with the royalty is calculate the percentage that you receive. We did talk about that there is a percentage you receive from the type of work that you do. So like music, there's performance, there's mechanical, there's, when it comes to books, hardcover, ebook, so forth. With video games, there's digital, which has multiple sources. Besides Steam, there's Roblox and Fortnite and other open world environments where you can build royalty income off that. Art, you can either digitalize or create it into a physical product and have that securitized. You can both have securitized anyway. That, though, is the basis of what you want to be focusing on, not just on the time aspect. But as to royalties for the entertainment side of things, for that one piece of work, again, you're going to be creating a trade secret. You're going to be licensing your work and having an agent looking for publishers to secure contracts for you, sometimes having NDAs signed off by the publishing company, but the publishing company is usually going to pay you an upfront fee for what you did as work, and then your royalty does not happen until the upfront fee that they paid you has been paid out entirely. So after that moment, from there, then you will have royalty income. But they're not going to give you any kind of royalty income on top of the upfront fee or the upfront payment that they give you. And of course, just make sure you calculate the percentages, what you're looking at, how much you're receiving, and that way it is beneficial for your situation and it continues to grow. So the more that will be coming in, I'd recommend having a lower percentage of royalty income over time because it's going to be growing even more. But what you can do is buy the trademarks, copyrights later on. That is an option after the contract has been fulfilled. Though, let's look at the resource side. So when it comes to resources like land, minerals, metals, gems, water, that kind of thing, you're going to be focusing first and foremost on the land and acquiring that. Or maybe you already have it, so that's much better, when you already have it. Now, if you have land only, it really, really, really depends on the land you have and what you can really do with it. Because if you don't have those kind of resources, that's okay. Find a way that you're able to build royalty income off that. Maybe you're able to lease the land. Or maybe you're able to do what's called glamping. Like you're in a very good spot for people to do that. Or camping. You got camping and you got glamping. So depends on which one you want to go for. Maybe it's near some farms. It's another good thing. And you do have good soil to be cultivated. Or maybe it's a swamp. Now with a swamp, that's going to be a little difficult. But there are ways that you can utilize swamp land. And what you can do with land that is uncultivated, you are able to construct and develop it into something that you want it to turn into. Now, if there are resources on that land, there is going to be development upon the land in order to collect and obtain those resources. Sometimes you might have several resources on the land that you own. That's great because then what you're able to do is have multiple royalty streams of income. That way, you're all having one location. That's great. It's rare to have something like that, but if you have that, you definitely want to take action. Now, when it does come to the resources on the land, before you buy any land, and there are resources there, you want to check that whether the rights to the resources are going to go along with the contract when the land title transfers to you. And if not, you want to research who currently owns it, or if nobody, what the process will be to get those rights. Usually, in the U.S., you'll go through the Bureau of Land Management for things of that nature. Not all the time, but majority of the time when it comes to land, you're going to be looking at that. Though, let's say that you do have the rights. Well, because you have the rights, you don't want to sell them. Unless you do, unless you really don't want anything to do with the resources. Like, let's say it's just a giant mountain and there's a swamp around the mountain. And there's, let's say it's quartz. I mean, that'd be a very odd match. Not sure if that's even possible. But let's say that for the time being that there's a mountain full of quartz and it's surrounded by a swamp. You don't want to do anything with it. Well, then go ahead, sell the rights to that. There's no problem with that. Now, if you know it's going to be very profitable, you don't want to sell the rights. Most times than not, you don't want to sell the rights to resources that are on the land and under the land that you have. You want to keep those rights, but license it out. Unlike books, music, art, games, the entertainment side of things, it's going to take a little bit longer to reinvest your royalty income. Whereas when you have resource royalties, you're going to have more to work with there. It's going to be of a larger portion most of the time. Sometimes it's not. Like, for example, solar and wind, you're not going to receive as much yearly. It's usually a much smaller amount. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just when it comes to the reinvestment side of the royalty income, I would not recommend such. I would recommend for things such as oil, gold, water, metals, gems, that kind of thing. You're going to have more royalty income from that than you would from smaller deals of like wind or solar, because you're usually looking about anywhere from like 2 to 10 grand per year. Now, there's other things that you can do, billboards, etc. Ultimately, the resource royalties is the better move to have the reinvestment of more royalty income than it is for the entertainment side of things. Entertainment side of things, that's more for your skill than anything else. Now, when we look at the franchisors and investment deals and property royalties, you want to build a franchise out of something like this. Because when you build a franchise, that is actual royalty income there. You don't really receive royalty income unless you're an investor. That's why there's the investment deals. But for businesses, always the franchise. Now, some of you don't want to have a franchise, and that's okay. But you're not going to receive any royalty income by building a business. It don't work that way. So, if you want to have royalty income from businesses, you need to be the investor, not the business owner. But, again, as a business owner, it would be just the franchise. What you are able to do as a franchise, you actually do not need to have any capital really, except for setting up the infrastructure and having the legal entities and that kind of stuff already set to go. But for like the assets, the marketing, the logistics, with the supply chain and so forth, That's something that you can require upfront from franchisees, where they pay you for the ongoing expenses plus profit on top of that. Because you're not just doing it for business expense, but you're there to make a profit as well. The profit side of things, that's going to be your royalty income. All else is just expenses for running the franchise. Now, when it comes to investment deals and the royalty income, this is where you invest in the companies or assets. And you're going to get the royalty percentage there. So those of you that have seen such as like Shark Tank, sometimes they'll say, hey, I'm going to give you this amount in exchange for this percentage royalty. That is one way. Another way that a lot of people aren't aware of is when you invest into a company or an asset, you can receive a royalty on the basis of a specific investment in that categorized deal. I know that kind of sounds like word salad right there. So I'm going to break that down. As an example, let's say you are using $1 million worth of capital to help a startup. Let's say this startup is doing something with rubber bands. Rubber bands, okay? Let's say it's a special type of rubber band, that there is a material that is used for this rubber band that's the majority of rubber band companies, they don't use. And it's very limited supply because it can only be produced, let's say, once every 6 months. Well, what you can do, instead of saying, hey, I want now royalty percentage for the amount of sales, say, hey, I want X percentage on the basis of this material being sold of the rubber bands. So when it goes up in value, I want this amount in royalty and not just the profitability of what you're doing with your company. You can do that. It's going to be a tough negotiation, but still can be done nonetheless. That was just a brief example, very quick. When it comes to property, though, the way you're going to receive royalties from property is investing in the improvements, which could be parking lot, it could be signage, it could be access, it could be events, could be energy, resource, specifically on that property. And you can retain these after selling the property itself, saying, hey, I want X amount of royalties from this part of the property that I've done improvements upon for X amount of years, and that will satisfy the sale. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're doing entertainment, resource royalties, investment deals. You want to place these in trust. doesn't mean automatically you're going to be paying 0% tax. Doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be anonymously receiving this royalty income. What it does mean is that you need to have the trust structured correctly. And that structuring the trust correctly and having the right documents sent to the state and to the IRS. And for those of you in foreign countries, to your country's tax collection agency, having that set up will avoid any future penalties. Future penalties is something everybody wants to avoid. So that's why it's very important that you have the asset protection and structured correctly and the documentation sent out to the correct departments and that they are satisfied with what you have sent to them. So that way you will successfully, after that point, have tax-free royalty income anonymously. Now, I'm going to give a combined royalty example scenario here that I have typed up. Let's say, you get entertainment royalties by performing on stage. Now, let's say you get resource royalties from mining companies who sell to tech companies. Now, let's say you get investment royalties from the tech deals. And then you have, property royalties from stage performances. You can see where this is going. You went from performing on stage all the way to royalty for providing the property. So entertainment royalty, you're performing on stage. You have resources on the land where you're having mining companies pay you a royalty for mining that resource because they're going to sell to tech companies. Then you have a tech deal that you did, and you're from those same companies getting investment royalties. And performing, and the stage performances where you have property of others performing gives you that additional property royalty. So let's say you get 25% royalties from entertainment, $250,000 a month. Now let's say you get 15% royalties from resources, $600,000 a year. Now let's say from the investment that you do, you get 3% of royalties, and that's $2 million a year combined from the entertainment, the resource, and the investment, not including the property. $5.6 million a year. And having that held in trust, you can then also reinvest into more royalties and investments. $5.6 million, because you are holding the resource, you are holding the investment deal, you're holding the performance on stage. $5.6 million a year. Not saying that's what you're going to make. What I'm saying is that you will be able to have something like such. Now, a couple of things before we finish up. First, when it comes to building royalties, this is something that you can potentially do, starting off with a zero income. It is possible. It doesn't mean that it's always practical. What's a little more practical and has a higher chance of providing you royalty income is going to be when you have capital available. Now, when you're starting off from zero, when I say that it's possible, just not as practical, you will need to raise capital in order to do this. You cannot work without it. Now, contrary to popular belief, you do not need money to make money. That is a myth. That is a lie. It does not exist. It's fairy dust. It is something to keep the masses and broke people poor. Now, it doesn't mean that there is no capital used, but it does not mean that you have to have the capital yourself in order to start. You raise the capital, and you do the deals. Now, of course, you need connections, and you need skills. That's fine. That takes zero financial investment whatsoever. It'll take time, but that's it. Now, I did say at the beginning, wealthy people focus on improving their time. Well, in order to do that, they have to focus on where they're going to put their time. In the beginning, it's required by everybody to put in the time of building their skills. And then going into benefiting off those skills. That's how it's going to work. So that way, later on, you have more time to do the things that you want to do. Now, when it comes to God's wisdom, this is what he has spoken to me about. Said, my children, wealth has been hidden from you for a long time. While the rich seek to pleasure themselves, I'm building you into a strong foundation for the coming years. Those same rich people that pleasure themselves will come to you with their riches, seeking your wisdom. Take what they give you and multiply it. I will guide each and every one of you as I'm doing so now. During these tough times, you must heal that which is broken before I position you. Otherwise, that which is broken will not remain, and that which is restored will be a foundation of strength to the nations. The multiple sources of riches is not merely for your lifestyle, nor for your health, or the freedom you so desire, as all those things are designed within you from conception, but for the expansion of who you are in me. Your identity is more powerful than anything in this world, and that's what the enemy does not want you to know. They fear when your identities are unveiled, as more than just brightness of the stars, but authors and stewards of creation. Your pain is only temporary, as my life is eternal and can change you in a moment. You were born royalty and will ascend as I have, becoming the very image I created. Take these royalties and abound with them in grace, humility, and joyful expression in all things made good. Do not judge what is given, to you, but receive it and know you have the power within yourselves to create it anew. My children, my people, the world is yours and not the enemy's. Let all who want me to come to you just as they are in that moment, so they too will be changed in a moment as you are. Make what is of love and joy, bringing the fruits of the Ruach, yes, and shower the world in praise. That is what we have been given as wisdom from God, as something that I will be providing at the end of every month. And of course, to finish off, we have some scripture. I declare in the name of Yeshua, Deuteronomy 8, verses 7 through 9. For the King, your Yahweh, is bringing you into a land, a good land, a land of brooks, of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron, and out of those whose hills you can dig copper. And then we're going to jump to Psalm 112, verse 3. Wealth and riches will be in his house, and his righteousness endures forever. Now we're going to look at 1 Corinthians 4, verse 2. Moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. And we have last, but certainly not least, 2 Corinthians 9, verses 10 through 11. Now may he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food supply and multiply the seed you have sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness, while you are enriched in everything for all liberality, which causes thanksgiving through us to God. And I seal these declarations in Scripture, in the blood of Yeshua, and in every realm, age, timeline, dimension, frequency, vibration, sound, planet, cosmos, constellation, universe, past, present, future, to infinity. All infinities of infinities and beyond, all eternities of eternities and beyond, all timeless that exist, once existed, and could or could not exist, on all sides of creation, everything in between, and all multiverses from the beginning across eternity, and Shemaim in the heavens, on Haaretz and under Haaretz. Aleph Tav. All right, everyone. As always, it is a pleasure. I'm going to now update you as to what we are going to look at for the next month. So, as we have finished up building royalties, we are going to look at accountability. Yes, this is going to be for the month of December. Even though we're starting on the 29th. But I believe what I'm going to do is wait until December 6th, because there are 5 Saturdays this month. So not next week, but the week after, we'll begin in December, is accountability. And at the end of each month, there's always a review of everything that we've covered. However, what we will be talking about in the first week of December is portfolio mandate and financial projections. In the second week, we'll talk about relationships and culture. In the third week, we're going to be talking about public image and governmental officers. This is something that is absolutely crucial for growing in the right direction, building true wealth, and being not just held accountable for ourselves, but holding others accountable and becoming royalty as we are born royal. And we will proceed in a couple Saturdays from now on that. Until next time, I'll catch you all out. Peace.